Sweet. Well, I think we're live, Sam.
Cool.
So first off, thanks for anyone that's tuning in right now. This is called Standouts. It's an only co-production where we talk to cool people about their companies and about them, and we start to understand what makes them unique, what makes them tick, what makes them different. We get into some strategy, we get into some story, and I just think it's really great. I recently heard this quote that I think is just awesome, and it's escape competition through authenticity. And so what's great about Sam and every interaction I have with him is he's authentic, he's real, and what you see is what you get, which is awesome. So anyway, for today, we're gonna talk about his company and what he does and why he does it. So Sam, thanks for joining today. I'd love for you to share just kind of who you are, where you're located, what you're about, and you can share a little bit about your company.
Yeah, dude. First of all, honored to be here on a podcast about standouts. When I saw that, I was like, wow, what an honor. So that's a kind title. I'm based out of Portland, Oregon right now. As you said, my name is Sam. I've been out here in Portland we're working on year 6, but a full 5 years. And there's a whole story behind how we got here. But eventually, after living in the city for a while, we started our company, Kids and Cobras. And we've been learning how to be entrepreneurs, honestly, since we got here, but how to start a company and what that looks like. Had no background in this kind of thing, but here we are. And I think we've started something that's really unique and special and has it's impacting lives and it's doing some cool things. And I'm excited for the future, but we're figuring it out as we go. So I'm also a father. That's important if you want to understand me. I'm a father of two little girls, Journey's 6, Desi's 3. And that's been fun. Journey's about to start 1st grade. So I'm doing all the dad life things. I own this company. I've got other things my hands are in, figuring out marriage. Life just keeps coming. So
that's great.
Yeah, I'm a normal dude.
That's great. So tell me about, within coffee, when did you say, I'd like to kind of explore the coffee business, the world of coffee? When was that? And what was maybe the spark that kind of triggered you into that?
Well, I honestly have only been drinking coffee for like 6 or 7 years. I did not have a background drinking coffee in college, or I wasn't a part of like the coffee surge that came with like Starbucks and then the third wave coffee that we do now. That's kind of on the heels of what Starbucks did. But I moved into Portland, Oregon, and it is like I actually live on what's called Coffee Roasters Row, and just some of the big heavy hitting coffee roasteries out here in Portland are right in our neighborhood. So at any given time, you can go on a walk and you can smell people roasting coffee. So just kind of live in the coffee culture being out here. And then like, if you've been to Portland, there's 10 coffee shops within walking distance, no matter where you go. A lot of them are doing their own roasting. So it's a fascinating business market out here. A lot of people are doing it. Coffee companies are popping up all over the US, especially with specialty coffee. So I think I was just around it. And what I love about coffee is not so much coffee as it is the conduit that it is to deeper conversations. And the vibe of going into a coffee shop, having a drink, getting some work done, meeting with people. What really attracts me to coffee is that it like, you don't ask a friend to like hang out. You ask, hey, do you want to go grab a coffee? And so coffee is just one of those third spaces in our culture that brings people together.
Yeah,
honestly,
do you want to grab a coffee is almost just directly, like the intention behind it is, hey, I'd like to get to know you, or I'd like to have a conversation with you. Like, that's cool. I hadn't really thought of it as kind of replacing that in a way.
Yeah. And honestly, I would say that's more of where our heartbeat is with the coffee. You kind of introduced it as a coffee company, totally our coffee company, because that's what we serve. But I think I know we're really like ringing the bell for other things, and coffee just happens to be the product that we sell because of that, because it's just the perfect way to serve people and bring people together. So
I love
Yeah.
that. That's super cool.
Yeah.
So many of you maybe tuning in know that with OnlyCo, we sort of incubated a company called Go Fast Don't Die, starting a number of years ago, and that's sort of how we got connected with Sam, related to I don't know, craft goods, I guess you could say, and a lifestyle around motorcycles and things like that. So it's been pretty cool. I actually had the magazine right next to me here. Kids and Cobras produced this magazine that's pretty cool called Slow, which I love. That Go Fast Don't Die is part of a magazine, or was part of a magazine called Slow. I just love it. So maybe could you talk about this a little bit, Sam? Why do you do this? I know producing something like this is, it's pretty straightforward in the sense of like it's not massive, but it takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
Being in marketing and doing things like this, like it doesn't just happen. It's not just like, oh yeah, we'll do a little like magazine and it'll be sweet. You got real expenses and time and energy into that. What made you want to do something like that?
Yeah. I mean, well, also the company didn't even start with coffee. We adopted coffee like 4 months in. It started more as a lifestyle brand. We were selling just your basic tea to people who love to ride, and there was a community of people riding. But then we're trying to figure out like what's going to be this driving force that brings people together. And coffee became the option. We had a few opportunities come our way to buy all the things you needed to roast. And so we didn't know how to roast coffee. I had no experience, but we learned it to meet the need that our company had at the time around building community. And then we had this idea of starting a subscription where people get coffee delivered to their door every month. But one of the unique pieces we started with it was publishing this magazine, which we also had no experience in. How do you publish a magazine? How do you even put one together? So the magazine actually just comes from my creative lens in life. Like love photography, love writing, love design, those kind of things. And so the magazine started as a way for us to capture the brand, to tell the story of the brand and the kind of people who would drive or our ideal client or our ideal customer, like telling their story and kind of positioning the brand as a solution to whatever it is that they're walking through, and how we could come behind them and serve them. So it was like this really beautiful, tangible thing that could come to people in the mail. It's a small mag, it's monthly. And so that's how that actually got started. I did not expect it to become like kind of the driving force of our company, because it does take a lot of content to publish something every month. And that means you're getting photos and you're interviewing people and you're writing. And so the magazine actually became this thing that drives all of our digital marketing. It becomes it's where the story is being held. And so being a small business owner, being a very small company, it takes out a couple birds with one stone, because we're getting all the content we need. We're engaging the culture we want to love on and serve. And we're also putting something together for all kinds of people to read these really unique stories. So that's where that came. And then a magazine, just like people have a lot of interest in it. There's like a growing community of people who love having an actual physical print, and people love to be in it. So it's brought a lot of attention to our brand, because people are like, oh, you want to tell our story? Yeah, I would love to be in a magazine. That sounds great. And so we can add value to the community we love by letting them share and tell whatever story we're trying to tell. And then also it's been fun to collaborate with Go Fast, like huge blessing and honor to get to do that, because our brands are similar in a lot of ways, but getting to collab on a magazine and collab on coffee was really, really cool. So it's just given us a lot of reach when we're really tiny, really small. So
yeah, that's really neat. One thing, and I think I've talked about it in a couple other standouts, but and it's not something we've talked about, so I'd love to get your first take, I guess, first reaction. But many times when we think about like positioning and being different, and having something that's lasting in that effort, you have to kind of come up with a cultural enemy, like something you stand against, and maybe, and I'll keep talking here so you can kind of have some time to think, but something that gives that spark of like, hey, this is the way things are going. or have been going, or the way things are. And we really want to create, if we're talking about lifestyle brands, we're talking about advocating for a lifestyle. So if you could think of, a cultural enemy, what is something that you really kind of rally against? I know that not to sound too negative, but I think it's cool to think about, like, why do we exist? And many times it's to fix a problem, or to be a solution, or to, advocate for something or for someone or whatnot. So,
I mean, yeah, I mean, I love that question, and I'm constantly asking that question. The other thing is, when we started this company, I didn't even know how to ask those questions, and I didn't realize that by starting a company, I was actually becoming a marketer. That my number one job was to learn marketing and understand it, because marketing ultimately, at the end, it might be a scary word for people, but the way I've come to understand it, it's actually how you serve your ideal customer. It's how you serve the people you believe in. It's how you help them meet their needs, and it's how you continue to show up in their story time and time again. So like, yeah, there are villains out there. I think that we have learned to, kind of prop up against what we represent. And the first thing that comes to mind is just a mundane story, a boring story. I don't think people want to live a boring story. Humans, we're all the same. There's needs that we have, physical needs, survival needs, but the world we live in today, there's aspirational needs. So I think Kids and Cobras is hitting one of those needs. It's more of an aspirational identity, and helping people. We want to come alongside people that want more out of their life than something that's boring or mundane, or we want to, we don't want people settling for the excuse of not chasing down whatever the dream is that's, permeating in their heart. We want to help them dust off their imagination and, go take life by storm, if you will. We like to say that there's like more courage in your tank than danger ahead. And so you should live from that space. And that comes directly out of my own heart, my own passion, my zest for life. And so the brand naturally is this brainchild of me, who's like, pushed my own limits and pushed my own boundaries in all kinds of spheres, whether it's being a dad or in the gym, really wanting to get the most out of life as possible. Because I really do think that this life matters and it's meaningful. And so if we can speak to that thing that's inside of people's heart, then it's good. And I think around like the moto community, naturally, I haven't been riding for very long. We started the company in 2020, and I had only been riding since 2019. And what I found, the need we initially started to meet, was I just started introducing myself to everyone I met. And especially if they were riding, if I saw them at a gas station, I'd pull over and just say, hey. And what I learned is most people haven't ridden with anyone. Most riders are new to riding. They don't know their way in. The culture feels very exclusive. And I think a lot of people embrace the two-wheel life because maybe they're in a midlife crisis and they're trying to feel something. I bought my first motorcycle when my wife told me she was pregnant with our second child, which is the opposite of how like a lot of people buy motorcycles. Usually they sell them when they start having kids. But for us, it was different. And it was kind of in the season of defeat for me. I had failed in one career path, and I just kind of found myself out there. But they're dangerous. Like everyone knows they're dangerous, and they're loud and they're sexy, and there's this appeal to them that you love, that people want to associate with. So if you see someone on two wheels, I think a lot of times they're chasing a feeling, they're chasing something. And so what's a bummer is a lot of different, markets and cultures, is there's exclusivity. And so I think it's hard for people to find their way in. And that's what I discovered, is I was looking to find my way in. And there's a lot of other people who were looking for that as well, but there were a few people doing it. And so we just started to do it. And before you knew it, we had, 20 people, 20 strangers going on a random ride together. And that's where my heartbeat and passion is. I just care deeply about people. So motorcycles are just a pathway to care for people, So I think that, exclusivity, gatekeeping, I think we're fighting against those things and fighting against those like, lies and excuses that we make that keep us from living our best life.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's spot on. I love dust off your imagination. I think that's a really cool picture. If you imagine something, like if your imagination was just sitting here and you just, and it's like, yep. That's just a really cool picture. And I love your line about more courage in the tank than danger ahead. I think it's a good thing for everyone to kind of keep on their mind. So let's see. freeze. Is it me? It looks like you're frozen on my end. Still there, Sam? Make sure it's not on my end if everyone's still here. I don't think it's on me. See if Sam will jump back in here in a minute. Sweet. And thanks for the text. Yeah, it looks like, oh, Sam's back.
You lost me.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but
Yeah, I remember you were talking and I could hear you, but you were frozen.
that's
and
cool.
then it died.
Well,
I
we'll just get
apologize.
back. No, you're good. We'll get back to it. Well, I think all I said is dusting off your imagination. What a great
Yeah.
picture. And the other is the idea that there's more courage in the tank than danger up ahead, you know? And I just think that's a really cool image. Yeah.
I think I've struggled at times answering some of those questions, because when we got started, I didn't know, like, what's the villain of our brand. I didn't know, like, now I know, like, we are trying to serve a specific kind of person, people who, believe what we believe, and we want to, meet their needs. But when it all started, I didn't know. And so I think you also learn that different products serve different purposes. And when you're a lifestyle brand, I think you're just trying to find those things that help people connect with the message you're really trying to spread, like those things, like those quotes that, you just repeated. So coffee, it's like, how do we leverage the coffee to meet that end in people's life? How do we leverage a slow mag or a t-shirt or something like that draws them into this epic lifestyle that they long to live?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, tell me about the name a little bit.
Yeah.
I'd love to kind of unpack that. It's obviously a pretty unique name in terms of kids and cobras, and it begs the question of, like, what is it? Which I think is really neat. But it also creates hurdles, like if you were called Kids and Cobras Coffee Company, or if you're called something coffee, it's easier in terms of getting a new person to understand what it is you're doing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, and I'm sure you've hit some of those hurdles, but some of that's the cool part, it's like you have an opportunity to unpack it. So let's hear about Kids and Cobras from a naming standpoint. Did it start as something else? Was there other ideas that didn't hit? What?
Yeah, it was. The name is a double-edged sword. So in one way, it's like there's a lot of companies out there that have like two words with an and between them now, and it's kind of like hip, trendy maybe. But I didn't start it. I didn't name it that for those reasons necessarily. But it is like, you guys selling like kids clothes, like like it's a very confusing name. And so I've actually, I've struggled with the name throughout our journey, because I understand, like, it's not completely clear. Like, Only Co is a fantastic name. Like, it's completely clear what you guys are up to. So in some ways it's a hurdle, but I also, in our most recent slow mag, I wrote about this. Like, I've thought about changing the name, and we've decided to keep it because of what it represents. So simply put, and is one of my favorite words. It is a word that connects things. It can bring, and specifically, it can bring two polar opposites together. And so our logo, is right here. It's the ampersand with a snake coming off the end. And Kids and Cobras shouldn't go together. You have something innocent and you have something dangerous. So them together is kind of not necessarily good, or you want to put those two things in a sentence. But as humans, we live in the and. We live between life and death, and how we manage the and will ultimately determine our happiness. It will determine our peace. We live between loss and gain. The loss, a breakup, and first love. Like, we are constantly managing victory and defeat. And I think it's easy to fall prey to some of our cultural narrative that you can do certain things and just achieve success at all times. It's impossible. Like, in fact, failure and defeats tend to be more of the experience we all connect in. And so it's, how do you live between the extremes of life and death? And when we do that well, when we are willing to engage that conversation, that's where life really happens. That's where life teams. That's where the beauty of life can be discovered. And we see that in, like, my mom, who lost her mother at 13. She was hit by a drunk driver. That's complete loss of life. And my mom experienced lots of abandonment and a really troubled childhood from all of that. But then she wasn't someone that gave up in life. She's someone who brought more life into the world, me and my three brothers. And now she's a grandma. And, there's just, we live in the middle of tragedy and amazing things all at once. And I think it's in the mess that when we learn how to understand and sift through the mess in community, that's where the magic in life happens. That's when you can start to dust off your imagination and lean into a more authentic human. So yeah, that's the gist of the name. I think that it's like we said a minute ago, there's more courage in people than danger ahead of them. And we want to unearth that. Like, what is that story you're telling? So also with that, like with the Slow Mag, I think when it comes to like business building and trying to scale and grow it, we're having a lot of conversations about that right now. There's this tension between, we mainly tell stories in it and we feature different writers. And there's this tension between like featuring influencers or people with a lot of creative influence through social media, and then telling the story of someone who has no following. And me personally, I actually love telling the story of the person who has no following, because most of us can maybe more resonate with that tale. But if we do tell the story of someone who has a lot of influence, we're really less interested in how they gained their influence, and we're more interested in what makes them a unique person who is living in the tension of the and. And that's what I think makes Slow Mag different from most of the magazines you'll find out there. It's a monthly companion to the coffee you're drinking that invites you to slow down and read about someone who is like you, chasing a life they're dreaming of. And that's inspiring. So, we're a hub of caffeination and inspiration, but yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's the name.
I love that. Say that one more time. A hub of caffeination and inspiration. Is that what it said?
Yeah, it sounds cool, but it's just, I don't know, we stumbled on it. So
I like it.
Yeah, we like to say, we're coffee and goods for backroad. Okay, this is like a country song or like any music. Like the song could be about anything, but you can turn it into what you want. So, we're coffee and goods for backroad people who, consider themselves thinkers and drinkers. They want to ride fast, drink slow. So we have all this different lingo to kind of illustrate what it is. But I think people find someone's going to align themselves with some of the words we align ourselves with, and they'll find their way in.
Yeah, that's really neat.
Yeah. Caffeination is, some words just rhyme. And I was like, that works. Put it on a sticker.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, I learned this concept a little while ago, and it was kind of like, I think it's called, the idea was one step ahead. And so, what it sort of means in teaching is that anyone can be a teacher as long as they're sort of one step ahead, because, if you're only one step ahead, you can actually help that person sometimes even more, because you know what it was to be one step back. It was just one step away. And so you're relatively new to this journey of entrepreneurship and kind of this whole process. And for some people, they maybe have never taken that step. So as you think about what you've learned, what's maybe a piece of advice you have around, I'll keep it really broad. Just what's one piece of advice for like that one step ahead, like you've taken this step and you've learned something, and what would be a good piece of advice for someone that hasn't started yet that wants to?
Yeah. Well, I never thought I could run a company. I never even thought it was it was a possibility. I thought it'd be cool, but I had no ability to think that it was a possibility. And I think starting something is like maybe one of the hardest steps. So being maybe one step ahead of that can be encouraging, because it's like scary. There's a lot of unknowns. They don't teach you how to start a business in high school. But I really think, what I love about OnlyCo, you guys talk about, we're not necessarily a marketing company. We're a differentiation and positioning company. And I love that. Because I think people look out, and I do at times, and I'm like, wow, this market's saturated with people who are doing stuff in the moto community. Like, what are we doing? And then I come back to, well, I think each of us have a song we're singing. There's something that our heart beats faster for. There's something that excites us. And I think everyone out there, could start something if they wanted to. Just taking that first step is hard. My wife right now, she's starting her own Actually, I'll plug her. Anyone watching, if you're looking for a personal trainer, my wife's doing this thing, but she has no clue how to start her company.
Mm.
And a lot like it hasn't started because she just hasn't started it. And I think it's like these little stepping stones, just like doing one little thing. You don't have to have all your ducks in a row. You don't have to know what you're going to fully do. You just need to know what you're about and what kind of thing you want to bring to the world. At the end of the day, like running a business is about solving a problem. Marketing is about the same thing, you know. So good marketing is about changing people's lives, raising their expectations, engaging in their hopes and dreams. And so I think if you're watching this or if you're thinking about starting a company, you're not shisty. You're not trying to swindle people. You're probably trying to make an honest living. And at the end of the day, you really want to help people and whatever it is that you want to do. And so helping people see further, that's the difficult work that a small business owner strives for. That's how you can be different. I think that we need more people starting things in the moto community. I think we need to think less that the market's saturated and we need to find our unique voice in the middle of it. And then I would say, if you're willing to grit it out, as long as you're willing to invest and put in the time and be patient, the joy is in the end. It's in the journey of it all, not in the success. And not, you know, starting is just one step. So I don't know if that was like a clear one bit of advice, but
That's
I have
great.
found, yeah, I have found that I think what I've learned in my story is what I'm most passionate about is helping people get wherever they want to go. And when you start to look at starting a business and marketing through that lens, it's not about you anymore. You know, your professional self is showing up to serve other people's needs, and that is brave. That's the most brave thing you can do, is to put another group of people before you and do everything you can to help them get to their end. And so, yeah, I mean, essentially, you have that song to sing. You have something in you, and don't keep it from the world. And I tell that to my wife all the time because she's incredibly gifted at coaching and the things that she can do with her clients and whatnot. And so I think she's like really leaning into that. And I'm watching right now, even she's taking little steps, and I had to do this too. And it's like, oh, okay, I learned this. Now that's behind me. I get to take another step towards the next thing. And so you just don't have to have it all figured out. Just you take a tiny step.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You can't get it all figured out, you know, like the more I learn, the more I know, or the more I realize I don't know, you know, and that's the fun part. So those of you watching, I would encourage you to go watch what Sam had to say again. I'd love to like try to summarize various pieces, but I just won't do it justice because there's a ton of gold in what you just shared. So I really appreciate you sharing that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, you're recording it, so I can
Perfect.
go back. I'm like, what did I say? I'll go back and be like, oh, yeah, I'll write that down.
Yeah, you
That's what I
should.
said.
That's what I'm saying. That's what this is about. It's about just, you know, the reason I did standouts was to have these conversations and have them be written down, you know, and other people can view in and check it out. So it's ton of good advice there. I love it. Um,
Yeah,
what are
thanks.
some things, this is kind of a funny question. What are some in positioning? I always look at it as kind of this number line. You know, I always see a number line. It could be on price, it could be on quality, it could be on speed, you know, whatever, you know, that's like kind of like triangle: quality, speed, price, pick two kind of thing.
Right.
And the one you don't pick in that triangle is the one you're deciding not to do. You know, like if you want to be a low cost provider, then quality is probably not going to be, it's not going to be super high quality. You know, and so there's always these trade-offs. And and the question I have for you is what have you decided not to do? Like I had a coach one time talk about it. What are you going to intentionally suck at? Because when you choose to be bad at something, you can be great at something that makes you unique and something you love and something you're better at than anyone else. I don't know if you've thought about this or not, but what is something that you're just like, that's not us, which
Yeah.
is kind of just, you know, it's in economics, it's sort of the opportunity cost. When you make one choice, you're not just giving up. You're not just the cost to do that choice, but the cost to not do another choice because time is limited. So what in your world, what's something you just decided, at least at this point, you can change your mind, by the way, that's a good thing. But at
Yeah.
this point, what are you like, we're not about this, I'm not doing this, I'm not trying this, we're bad at this, you know?
Yeah. I remember you bringing up the triangle over breakfast out here.
Mm.
And so this is the second time I've heard it. What were the three, what were the, or at least the 3 points you put
Yeah.
on there?
Yeah. So it's quality, speed, and price.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the thing that I've done wrong in this journey is everything, like trying to do everything,
Mm.
uh, trying to be quality, trying to be speed, trying to have a price. Like it's one of those things where we are, I am learning and our team is learning how to get good at smaller specific things. And then like, this is what we are going to do really well. But we haven't, we're in the middle of like cutting out certain things. I also think what's unique about our situation is being such a small company. There's a bunch of different pieces to what makes a company a company. If you think of it like an airplane, you got the cockpit, which is your vision, your leadership, the people, driving, flying this thing, telling us where we're going to go. You have the engines. If there's 2 engines, you've got your sales engine, your marketing engine, you got your wings, which are your product. And then the hull of the ship is essentially all of your overhead. And then you have your cash flow, which is your gasoline and or your fuel. And you need all of that to be working together to get the plane off the ground and to fly well. And the thing is, when you're starting a company like us, we finished 2 years. We're working on year 3 of this. We never took out a loan. Nothing, it was like at the beginning, I was trying to work on all of it. And it was really hard. And so it's kind of like you're working on each part of the plane as you go. Like cash flow is a big thing. If you don't have cash, you can't invest anywhere. You can't do anything. So you got to get fuel. If you have too much overhead and your wings are too small, you don't have enough products, like you're never going to have enough lift. And if you don't have your engines firing with your marketing and how you're getting out in front of people, sales, like actual making those sales, like you're going to have nothing propelling you forward. And so maybe that was too much of a mouthful, but that's how we
good. It's good. When you first said it, I was like, okay, we got the body, we got the wing, we got the, and then it's really good. It's really, really good. I've never heard it described that way, but I think it's brilliant.
I think the first person I heard that from was Donald Miller. Marketing made simple stuff. So, but that's been helpful to me because we certainly have had vision, and that's, I think, where we're the strongest, but then figuring out our products and figuring out the cost. One of the things that I didn't expect getting into coffee is all of the overhead and all of the time and energy it takes to order green from a different country, get it here, roast it, pay people to roast it. That's the art of being a coffee roastery, selling coffee. We have to do that well. We didn't know what we were doing. So figuring that out. And then like all the moving pieces is like, you have to have bags, you have to have labels. If we're going to do specialty coffee, we have a Guatemala this season, but once the Guatemala's gone, it's gone. There's no more in the world because it's another season. So we got Ethiopia this season. So that's different labels. There's so many moving parts in it. We struggled to actually I just had too many irons in the fires. Like we were printing t-shirts ourselves. We were roasting coffee. We were packaging it all. And we were trying to be excellent at everything. And we were really, I think, failing at it. So we started to like, who are we? And that's kind of what you and I have talked about today. I think that we're actually about meeting the need of an aspirational identity in someone. And so these products need to serve the company's end, not, we don't need to be serving our products, which is what kind of was happening. So we've leaned in on quality because we are doing specialty coffee. So we put in a lot of investment in that.
It's good, everyone. It's good coffee. That's a good thing.
Yeah. But then in the quality, we've also changed our coffee program from being niche. Like I think where we are different is we're really focused on a specific type of lifestyle community. And the people who ride motorcycles, a lot of them don't care at all where the coffee came from. They just want to slug down some bean juice. And so I resonate with these people. I also resonate with kind of the future of coffee and us doing a better job than Folgers or Maxwell House has at taking care of the industry and farms and fair paid wages and all that stuff for farmers and better farming methods and those kind of things. And that's what you get with specialty coffee. So yeah, we're focused in on the quality, but we also work to market the quality to a group of people and kind of pull them into drinking better coffee in a way that's understandable. So I'd say quality is something that we hold on to. Speed. How did you mean? It's like speed, like how fast you can turn a product around, or
Yeah. So like how fast you can respond to a customer request, or how fast you can get that product there.
yeah, that's probably the thing that we've cut out. And one, we don't have like thousands and thousands of people ordering the coffee every month, so it's something that's been easier to cut out. But like managing our coffee inventory and our cash flow, it's a real delicate balance at this stage in the life cycle of our company. So people will play. We roast and we do everything to best serve that ideal client, not to like have the most dialed in roast at the moment someone orders it. So we roast once a week. We don't roast every time we get an order. And then we've kind of packaged things in a way that allows some space. So if someone places an order, they will get their order within a week, but it's not like they're going to get it in a couple days or 4 days. It could be up to 7. It's all based on how do we get them fresh coffee, but also at a doable time frame for us. So I would say speed is something we're not great on. Sometimes we are, but we just don't have the manpower either to fully
Yeah.
pull that off. So quality, I think I'm someone who loves quality, and I prefer to often work with customers who want quality. And so those are going to be, I think it's going to be a more specific group of people. So we're not just trying to sell coffee to the masses. That's definitely not in the strategy. We're trying to sell it to certain people who like coffee, but also are chasing down this aspirational identity, which like really narrows it down to who would buy it. So, yeah. Did that answer? Yeah, I hope that was somewhat on. I think we're just learning all the time that, I mean, we used to print t-shirts and then we're like, we're not doing this. Like, we can't. This is ridiculous. There are Go Fast Don't Die sells t-shirts and they're doing it great. And we love what they're up to. We're not a graphic tee company. We should stop trying to be. So like we have t-shirts, but it's more supplemental to the brand's goal versus like being an apparel line or apparel company, and I might not be fully speaking of Go Fast the way you might think of it, but there's a lot of people selling t-shirts. And so we just kind of went a different route and closed that up.
Yeah, no, I get it for sure. I think this is all still part of our same moment here, chapter. But when you talk about building the plane as you go, and you're a one man, fabricator basically at that point. There's kind of a cool quote that I might have shared with you already, and forgive me if I have already said, but it's I think it's from Elon Musk that says starting a business is like eating glass while staring into the abyss. And I just think it's an awesome picture. Like it's just an awesome picture where you're just like staring into a black hole, glass. And the reason I think the way he describes it is eating glass is doing all the things you're not good at and you don't like doing, that you have to do because you're the only one to do it. And if you're going to get off the ground, you got to have a plane that will work. It's not perfect plane, but it's an ultralight, like you're going. And through that process, you go, man, like doing the sales part, I actually really love. I don't necessarily love the marketing part. So it's like, okay, in time, as you begin to gain some momentum and some speed, you're able to build out other parts and get other people involved. And the whole idea here is to provide something valuable in the marketplace that's willing to pay more than it costs to produce it. That allows that profit for innovation and for building, and for creating the company that you want. And then the abyss part is that you could go out of business at any moment. You could, something could change, like a COVID type event that just rocked so many businesses. Like things happen, things change, and you have to be willing to change and be willing to look at what's coming down the pike and say, oh, this could be bad,
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think it's an interesting way to kind of think about the business in a very real way. It's like, I always, I love it when I meet with people that, had been, that have been an employee for like their whole, adult life or whatever. And then they decide to go into business on their own. And there's always that moment of like, is this worth it? Is this going to work? Like, this is way scarier than I thought it was. Like, I always sat back and sort of said, man, if I were in charge, I would do it this way. But everything changes when
Yeah.
you're in charge of the P&L. Like, everything changes when you're like watching the inflows and the outflows going, geez, I thought we were charging enough, but this isn't going to work. Or, geez, this is, maybe we're charging too much and no one wants to buy our stuff, or how do I get my brand out there, and all these things that, just take a lot of time. And I loved earlier when you're talking about patience, just ability to keep going. And that's, to play the game, you got to keep playing,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. Yeah. I resonate with all of that. And I think one of the ceilings we're up against right now with Kids and Cobras is like, what the big question is, what does our future hold? I'd love to talk more about this with you at like maybe a little now, but at some point.
yeah.
And just like get wisdom, obtain wisdom from you on like, what does our future look like? Because this summer I've been seriously kicking around expanding ownership, finding investors, because it feels like in some ways like I have a ceiling limit to what I can contribute to this. And at the end of the day, I actually can't wear every hat forever. There are things that I'm going to be good at and things that I'm not going to be good at. And the things that I'm not good at may be very vital to the life of a company. And that's the ball that might drop more than it should. But yeah, we're like at this stage of like, what does the future look like, and how do you protect this thing, and also risk and lean in to the future? And one of the things I feel is like when I think through ownership, it's like I know what owner mentality feels like, specifically with my company. I know the risk, I know the blood, the sweat, and honestly, maybe for a lot, tears. I haven't had tears yet in mine because I think just the nature of the youthfulness of the company, and it's been tons of fun. So the blood and sweat has all been worth it at this point.
Tears will come.
Yeah. Maybe they've happened, but I think one of the, you talked about competitive advantages. I think one of our competitive advantages is we got started in a pandemic. So we don't know what it's like to have a thriving company, that can just blast Facebook with an ad and people buy stuff, and then all of a sudden it doesn't because of a pandemic. Like we got started when like people weren't buying things, specifically from a brand named Kids and Cobras that sells coffee. Like, so it's like, dude, we had one coffee subscriber, 10, 20, and it just starts growing. Every bit of it felt like just a little bit of success, but it's also not enough to like fully support me even at this point. I think it has it in it. I think it has it in its tank. But the future is like, what does that big piece look like, and how do you do it well? One of the things I felt, to play off what you just said with ownership, is I know what it has taken to sacrifice for this little brand that did not exist on anyone's mind, and now actually has some attention and people are interested in buying into it. But it was literally born out of nothing in the pandemic. And so it's really cool to like go, wow, like we actually put something of substance together and people love it and they want it to be there. But then when I think about expanding, it's like, well, how do you expand in a way that the same level of care is going to come that we have been able to put into it? Because it is different. Like it's way easy to be on the outside, throwing ideas at Kids and Cobras or whatever company, saying, this is what you should be doing. This is what you should be doing. And I get that constantly. And I'm like, what is it? Like, yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, that's a great idea. But it's like, what are we going to be good at? And if you're the one that has the financial investment in it, it's a lot more risky to invest in a whole nother thing, or, to lose out on it. Your family could be impacted, will be impacted by that. And so there's so much there that I totally resonate, staring into the abyss of like, could this happen? I think what's nice is I'm in the entrepreneurial role where this isn't how I'm making my living. And I think that must be said too. Like, this is a passion project that I'd love to grow to get to that point, but I actually make my living elsewhere. And Kids and Cobras, we're trying to grow it to be sustainable. We pay a few employees, so we have our own budget. And as I can, I'll take what I need from it. But ultimately, we're trying to grow it to a place where it's sustainable and maybe will one day pay us. And I think that's the grind I'm in, being 2 years in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's really cool. Well, I have one maybe simple question, and it kind of stems from a funny question that I get asked a lot. And being that you're in business now, you might get asked a lot. And sometimes I recklessly ask this question too, probably. But you get asked this question like, how's business? And it's always like kind of it's a fair question. How's business? And I'm always like, do I want to answer this at all? And then, and if I do, am I going to tell the person how business actually is? It's like, can they handle that? That's not really what they're asking. It's like, what they're really asking is, how you doing, or hi, or hello, or something like that, you know? And so, what I want to ask you, and I think I want to plant the seed of just asking business owners this question is, are you enjoying what you're doing? You know, like, I think that's a more fair question, because it's funny. Sometimes I'll answer busy, really busy. And they're like, oh, well, that's good. That's better than nothing. And I'm like, well, how do you know I'm not busy? Because I'm super afraid that we're going to go out of business. You know, like, that's not the response is, well, good. That's better than, and so I just love the question. Like, how are you doing? Are you enjoying what you're doing? So I guess that's what the question I'd ask you. How are you doing? And are you enjoying what you're doing?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yes, absolutely. Cause I want to be here. I want to be swinging, trying to hit a ball, if we weren't passionate for it and love it. And I think, there's that quote that we've probably all heard, where if you do something you love, you won't work a day in your life. And that quote breaks down somewhere, but there is something to be said about just knowing who you are and knowing what you want to do. And I mean, at that point, if you've found that, like, the money part is less relevant to it, or whatever pain comes, it's like, man, I've chosen to embrace this. I want this. And so I would say that's totally where we are at. And I think the other thing, when people ask that question, it is a funny question, because I think people honestly just want to hear it's growing leaps and bounds up and to the right.
Oh, it's doing great.
And yeah. That's what they actually want to hear, because if you were, and I think this is where I liked your quote at the beginning about authenticity, and there's a nuance here in a conversation around that word. But this is where I think sometimes authenticity as a business owner, we have to be really mindful with what that looks like and be able to define it well for ourselves. Because if you were like, it's rough, it's really hard, we're not doing well, we were upside down last month, I had this employee do this thing, if that's a customer you're talking to, like, you have lost sight of what business building and marketing is all about. Because at the end of the day, your company exists to serve their needs, not your own. And so I think it's a question that can trap, especially people who are new to it, even like me, because there are hard days, I guess maybe there's been some tears somewhere in the journey.
Yeah.
But like, I think it plays off the question you just asked too. It's been so good and it's been so rich, but I think you do have to be mindful about at least knowing the people you're talking to when they want to talk about business. And at the end of the day, you exist to serve their need, not your own. And so just have to be cautious, because it is a trapping kind of question. It's like,
Yeah,
they just want to hear that it's successable.
yeah, and the intent is not bad, it's
Yeah.
a fair question. It's like, yeah, just how's business, and like, I'm sure I've asked it. But yeah, it's interesting to try to balance. How do you be really authentic without being too honest?
Yeah.
Given that certain scenarios call for a certain level of transparency and some don't. And I think that's a balance. And especially as a business owner, you do get times of loneliness, and you're just trying to like figure this out, and you want someone to talk to and work through. And I just, before I hopped on this call with you, I got done with a call, and Adam, my COO, yelled across the way here. He goes, just got doing some business therapy. And I'm like, what'd you say? He's like, business therapy. I'm like, yeah, probably. It's like 30-minute call. And we just need that. That's one thing I love about what we do is applying kind of a therapeutic mindset to like marketing, like, hey, how are we going to figure this out? Are we actually asking the right questions? Are we actually doing the right things? So anyway, and I guess it's a pretty good transition to just thank you for the time, Sam. If you have anything to add, I'll pause here real quick, because I don't want to cut you off if you had a thought, but I'd love to shout you out and talk about kind of what's next, and thank everyone for joining. So
Yeah, dude. No, I mean, not a whole lot to add. I could talk forever business. And I think where I'm at is like, I'm like a sponge in this season, just like soaking it up, learning as much as I can, because in a lot of ways, I might be a step ahead of the person that wants to start something. Um, but I am, there's so many people in front of me that have been where I've been. And I'm like, who can help us think through, the next phase. So I appreciate the conversation and all the conversations I've had with you. When you came out to Portland, uh, dude, I just like, you deserve, like, I just wanted to pay you millions just for a little bit of a conversation because of what you just said. A lot of times you're just like beating your head against the wall and like, profit and loss, cash flow, how do I keep this thing moving and stay true to the dream? And so I appreciate the conversation. The conversation is really rich, and we do need that space. So thanks for considering us a standout.
Heck yeah, man.
Because
You guys definitely stand out. It's awesome. And I've worked with 1,000 companies plus in the last 12 years, I think. So, and I've talked to even more. So I think I have a pretty good eye for standouts. So anyway, really
I'll
appreciate
take
what
it.
you do. You guys got to check out Kids and Cobras. Order up a bag of coffee, check it out, get behind the brand, check out the magazine. Whether you're into motorcycles or not, doesn't matter. This is about more than motorcycles. Motorcycles is just kind of the medium for this story, and I think that's a cool thing. So thanks again, Sam. Tell your wife hello for me. I also want to say, if any of you are interested in talking about standing out, and Sam had some amazingly cool things to say about what we're about. I did not pay him to say any of that. So anyway, I really appreciate
About
the words, Sam, just about Only Co and whatnot.
oh yeah,
So
yeah.
anyone's interested in exploring differentiation, positioning, please feel free to reach out. I'd love to talk about it. It's my passion, it's our passion, and it'd be fun to see if we can help you. So anyway, Sam, thanks again. I'm going to tune out, and then we'll just stay online and kind of chat it up here for a second. So thanks everyone for joining. Really appreciate you hopping on.